In the puzzle that is Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, one of the strongest tools that we have access to is Sister Argenta. She is an Adeptus Sororitas that joins us in Act 1, and she is a pivotal member of the team from start to finish. She is in fact one of the strongest potential companions that you can get, and has only gotten stronger every buff. Whilst in DLC 1 she got briefly outshined by Executioner, buffs in 1.5 and also her helmet buff in 1.4 have kept Argenta relevant, being the strongest ranged damage companion possible. Argenta, as a priest, has access to Litany of Hatred, which is exceptionally strong. So when it comes to her gameplay, you have access to a very powerful set of weapons in bolters for burst fire. Now, unfortunately, flamers and melters, which are also part of the priest origin, are still a bit lacking. So when it comes down to building Argenta, you're mostly going to be using a rapid fire weapon in one set and a shotgun in the secondary set. In Act 5, you will get access to an incredibly powerful flamer, but this will mostly just be for the final boss run, so you'll be spending 99% of the game not using flamers. It'll be more beneficial to have a shotgun for close quarters combat, and in Act 1 you can use items like the Relish Anguish to be able to generate temporary HP, which will keep Argenta alive. She does have access to power armors, but she doesn't get her first power armor until Act 3. Originally she could only equip her Sister Sororitas power armor, but with a slight oversight, when they added new power armors they allowed Argenta to have access to it. So far this hasn't been patched to be changed, and I would like to see her get access to the Artificer power armor if they're now deciding that she can use any power armor, because this would make her the most AP efficient version of her. When it comes to archetypes, Argenta has access to 3, Arc Militant, Master Tactician and Bounty Hunter. Whilst they each have their benefits, unfortunately once again Arc Militant just vastly outshines the other two. Master Tactician does not increase your attack economy and has very poor movement, and it's mostly based around buffing and fellowship. Whilst you can get a lot of buffs to fellowship, unlike a Rogue Trader, you don't get a lot of free fellowship, so you won't see much benefit there. It's actually better to have Jay as a Master Tactician to buff Argenta to get the most use out of Master Tactician than it is to have Argenta be the Master Tactician herself. On paper, it would seem like Bounty Hunter would be probably one of the best roles for her, because it gets obscene crit damage and armor penetration. Unfortunately, excess armor penetration doesn't do anything. If excess armor penetration turned into damage, and there was a lot more elite enemies in encounters, then Bounty Hunter would probably be the strongest option for a tier 2. But because so much of that excess is wasted, it means Bounty Hunter just doesn't see much mileage. In order to get the most out of it, you also need to be using a lot of single shots. Whilst this is absolutely fine for Argenta, and she can stack really high ballistic skill this way using over penetration and masterful display, this is not going to give you as much benefit as what you would see from just having the extra attack economy and freedom of movement that comes with Arc Militant. Arc Militant will also give you a lot of ways to stack debuffs as well as stacking your damage, and with Argenta's Litany of Hatred upgrades that you are going to be seeing some exceptional damage coming in here. When it comes to talent selection, some of the key ones you're going to want to get early from her soldier is going to be muzzle velocity and unfaltering fire. Muzzle velocity will mean that your rate of fire will get added to the first shot in the damage, and unfaltering fire means that your rapid fire no longer reduces your damage. Combining this with talents like Fired Up, every hit you do is going to increase your critical damage, which over the course of battle will very quickly ramp up. Getting Swift Slaughter early is also another thing that's going to be very important, because it means that you'll be able to activate Revel in Slaughter a lot faster. The strongest version of Argenta is definitely her heavy weapons build, so building up into again heavy weapon efficiency, breaking point and overpower as soon as possible is very beneficial to her. By going into Arc Militant, you can also get heavy gunner that reduces the AP cost, which is again why this is the best version. You can have Argenta fully online by level 21 this way, and with all of her buff talents by level 24 she'll be able to one-burst some of the strongest encounters in the game. Litany of Hatred and Tenets of Retribution with Bolt Weapon Expert mean that she does some exceeding damage that made previously really hard encounters just an absolute cakewalk. Once you do get into her Arc Militant, you're going to be wanting to pick up stuff like Always Ready, All Out, Flash Fire, Adaptability and Critical Versatility. This will allow you to get the most out of your versatility. It will also allow you to be able to have freedom of movement when using Reckless Rush, and it will allow you to get access to Wildfire for reduced AP costs. It means that you'll be able to build versatility by doing a Shotgun Blast 1 AP, and then potentially, because you've used Reckless Rush, going into Wildfire for 1 AP to do a full-on burst, which you can then boost up with her Litany of Hatred and her Rapid Fire. You'll be able to later on pick up some other things like Kick, but Devastating Attack is probably going to be the ability you want to go in first, just to get some debuffs on enemies, because this will, with Breaking Attack and other abilities like Distract, it will get up your damage talents for Arc Militant. Other talents getting in there, Dismantle, means that you'll have full access to Contempt for the Weak, Preferred Targets, and Exploit Weakness. Other talents that will come in a little bit later, which would have been nice to get earlier, will be Rack and Ruin, Demolition Engineer, Point Blank, and Enough Bullets for Everyone. With all these damage talents, you'll see Argenta doing over 1,000 damage per bullet, and if you're building up her ballistic skill correctly with the compensated gloves, you'll be able to be doing incredibly high burst. Over 30 shots, each doing 1,000 damage, will absolutely shred enemies. Combine that with the fact that Degraded Defense will enhance the damage of each following bullet after the first, means you're going to do a lot of damage. Other things that are going to be useful is Extermination and Deadly Aim, because these will also help boost up that damage. Argenta is going to be a bit of a meme in your runs, because she's just going to go through and destroy everything in your sight. So with these talents and abilities being your main focus, it comes down to you don't actually need that much gearing. Of course, you're going to want to get items to reduce her recoil, which you can get access to in Act 2, and then you can get some incredibly powerful boosts to this in Act 3 and Act 4. So Argenta is never waiting for that first 100 hours to come online. She's online from the get-go. Just make sure you swap away from her initial starting bolt in the prologue and swap over to either one of the scrappy autoguns or a las rifle until you can get one of the normal bolters or one of the upgraded bolters from the vendor in Act 1 or Act 2. The combat loot that you're going to kind of want to use with Argenta is setting yourself up into a good position, either opening with Concentrated Fire, which will give you increased damage and dodge reduction, as well as more armor pen coming in from abilities like Point Blank. You can start off for a 1 AP attack followed with a 1 AP enhancement that's going to also knock back enemies and do damage. Like I said, in Act 1 with the Relished Anguish, this will allow you to build up temp HP. If you've then built it into Reckless Rush in Act 2, this will mean that your Wildfire with the Flashfire upgrade will now allow you to do a 1 AP burst fire that you can then follow up with a Rapid Fire. This means for 4 AP we've done 2 incredibly high damage attacks, which then will also leave AP to then go in for a run and gun, which you could use to go for either a 0 AP shotgun blast or potentially a 0 AP single shot from your bolter, or if you really wanted to go into, you can then do another Rapid Fire for 1 additional AP. As you get access to more AP, especially when you pick up Eager for Battle, this will leave in extra room to be able to use stuff like Devastating Attack to be able to get in some more debuffs on the enemies. As you build it in later to get Firearm Mastery, the upgrades for this will allow you to have incredibly high rates of fire. This is going to be the heroic that you're going to want to focus on, because Firearm Mastery with the upgrades will basically give you an extra 30% rate of fire, so this will help build up those burst fires. Kick is going to be another way to build up versatility, but it isn't going to be something that you need to focus on too hard. In the later game, there are some very good combos that you can do with Entrench, such as saving and banking AP given from Metabolic Overcharge, but unless you're using a Biomancer that's been set up to do that, you're probably not going to get much use out of Entrench. And Controlled Shot can be useful for that one big fire to not blast allies. Chances are you're not going to need to use that, because it's going to be very rare that you're going to have your front line entangled because of how easy it is to one turn from a Grand Strategist. Now, not much has changed from the initial build that I put on for when I presented this at the start of 1.5, because Argenta has just been very solid and has only seen buffs throughout the change, with no major impacts coming in post 1.5. As you can see, I build for this version compared to 1.4 to go more into the rapid fire early, because 1.4 the big thing was shotguns, but with the big boost that we've now had with Tenets of Retribution and Litany of Hatred, it's much better to focus on her bolters and just getting out her rapid fire early. As you can see, we'll progress through improving her rapid fire in the tier 1. In the tier 2, it's all about getting her heavy bolters online, and then in tier 3, it's just picking up all the excess damage talents that you'll get. As for gearing, you will want to get her into the heavy bolter as soon as you get into Act 2, and you'll just be constantly giving her an upgraded shotgun as you go through and pick them up. When it comes to backpacks, there aren't that many options for her. The tactical backpack is very good, and like with boots, there aren't that many options for her either. You will start off with the Sororitas boots if you haven't already given them to Cassia, and eventually you'll go on to the Caligay of St. Keith in Act 4, but there isn't too many options. You'll start with some of the recoil war gloves, or the recoil war boots before then, and once you get access to the gloves of Rapid Desolation or even the compensator gloves, you'll be kind of set. Before then, you can use the marksman's braces, which is absolutely fine. And her accessory slots, again, the chains of domination is going to be very strong, but you also have a lot of options with, say, Bead of Might, St. Cognitius Scriptures if you build into Law Imperium, Demolition Instructions, Echo of Victory, or the Book of War Prayers. So you're not going to find yourself having too much of a struggle when it comes to gearing up Argenta. Now, compared to when we made her at launch, it is definitely very obvious that the best path to put her on is the Fire path rather than the Fury path, because this gives us access to the version of the 1-star armor that allows her to multiple stack her war hymn. Other versions are possible of this build, like I did say. You can do a light gun version of the Arc Militant rather than going to heavy guns. It is significantly weaker, but maybe for roleplay reasons you wanted her to go to this way because you were building a heavy gunner version yourself. There's also a Master Tactician build that you could very much do as well. So if you wanted to go the Master Tactician route, it is noticeably weaker, but it is perfectly playable. I actually haven't put her Bounty Hunter version onto the spreadsheet for this version, mostly because Bounty Hunter just doesn't really scale very well. Whilst on paper Bounty Hunter should be the best version of Argenta if you're not going into heavy guns for Arc Militant, it is very clear that all that excess armor penetration isn't actually doing anything. So unless you have a mod that excess armor pen becomes damage, there's not really much reason to use Bounty Hunter. It's much better to be focused on, say, arc rifles and shotguns as a Bounty Hunter than it is to be rapid fire burst weapons. Whilst it is perfectly possible, you'll find that it just feels like a worse way of playing Arc Militant. As stated with the Abelard video, I don't want to give a one-for-one telling of exactly what to do and how to play, because if I do that, it will impact people's experience and their gameplay and story. However, things that if you do want to maximize Argenta, you're going to want to look out for is her Corruption Eradicator helmet is probably going to be her best in slot. Items that are useful but not mandatory, stuff like the Aquilia Pendant is very good earlier game, but you can always go into Fury Incarnate for the end game. You definitely want to pick up the Chains of Domination. The location for this is on the spreadsheet that is linked in below, along with all the other resources I've used in this video. But the power of the 1-star going her Fire path is actually way stronger than her Fury path now because of those extra uses of War Hymn. You'll find this to be incredibly useful and it will give you some obscene damage. Whilst you can go with the Inertia boots, the Caligate of St. Keith are also some good options depending on where the Inertia goes, because you obviously want to spread it out throughout your team. But the Tactical Backpack is a great option to go on here because there aren't many backpacks to go with her. But the best item that you're going to find for her is the X4 Compensator Gloves, because it will just constantly increase the rate of fire based on your ballistic skill. Stuff like Masterful for Precision can allow your single shot over penetrations to stack up your ballistic skill even more, but that if that is too gimmicky for you, you can avoid going in for that. Other little items like the Bead of Might here is also fairly good, but if you're looking for other suggestions, do have a look at the spreadsheet. These are not one-for-one of what you need to do, but these are going to be sort of the direction that you want to go if you're going to min-max. And without question, the improved heavy bolter is the best in slot for her, and that's why we like to go Arc Militant. But if you go for Master Tactician, you're probably going to want to look at They Shall Weep. Unfortunately, her lighter bolter that's based on her heroic is currently bugged, and we are waiting for fixes from the devs. And as for Purging Fury, this you'll only see right at the end of Act 5, so chances are you're probably going to want to stick with shotguns. But that's all I've got on the updated Argenta video. If you do want to see a one-for-one guide to explain every single talent in excruciating detail, do look at her 1.5 update video that I did around the start of DLC 2. That's all I've got for today. Do leave a like if you enjoyed this sort of content, and I will see you all in the next video.